Chief, want to continue where you left off, please?
Did you want me to continue where I left off, or do you want me to start over?
You can give us the abridged ending.
So if we're able to accomplish what I'm recommending tonight, I can do it in budget, based on what my current budget projections are for July. There is a little exposure for health insurance, and those are things that we'll have to look at. The clerk's wage is not a hard number. Those are things we'll have to look at, and certainly we'll work on that. It's at 32 hours. Again, if FinCom comes back and says we need a little more flexibility, if it needs to go to 24 hours, we could probably do that. What this does do is I've got a question on the special town meeting next week for $20,000, roughly. I think it's 18 or 19,000 change for overtime.
It's 20,000 even.
It is 20,000 even. And that is for just the next 3 months or so, because I'm shorthanded. By having these officers, I won't have this kind of unusual event. I will be able to absorb someone going out injured. And perhaps just as important, I'll be able to absorb vacation time, and over the next year or two, probably 2 years, get it down to, I've got people that have vacation holiday time accrued from 3 years ago. I keep denying them their days off. We will be able to purge that at no additional cost to the town. If someone was to retire right now and had 40 or 50 days, the town would have to write a pretty big check.
Right. Yeah. So, in a nutshell, coming into next fiscal year after last year's plan, we said, you know what, one more officer gets to a better place to deal with some of the things you're talking about. And what you're outlining here is a means to get to that additional officer within your current budget.
Correct.
And replace the one that's leaving.
The exposure here
is in a year's time.
is that if the officer going to Africa comes back in a year's time, we either have unemployment exposure, or you're at full staff at that point.
Right.
You'd be at full staff, but we have to find a way to fund that.
Full staff plus, that's it, one more than we originally talked about a year ago.
Yeah, that would put me back where I was in 2003.
What is that, what's that happen? Say we don't want to go the unemployment route, what does that mean in terms of, are there potential, could that start to self-fund itself based on the fact that you're further reducing any other expenses?
This is going to cost us $60,000.
No, I understand.
That's the number that we would be increasing.
Yeah, I mean,
actually, no. The number that increases right here. That's what he makes.
when he returns, we
would go back up by 60 grand.
Yes, that's correct.
No, but I didn't know if an additional officer, similar to what we just talked about, we said, okay, we funded this one officer by looking at potentially savings, within the current budget.
Yep.
You get dispatch savings, you got other things, so you manage the numbers. There will be an additional benefit by reduction in overtime, either by not having to transition money to pay for increase in overtime, or you potentially reduce it further. Will it be the 14th officer in a year's time give you any additional benefit that would help reduce the impact of a $60,000 increase when he returns?
Well, at full staff, the revenue will continue to rise. If you look at our revenue stream, we're at double. We're just about double what we predicted. So at full staff, that will increase additionally. And I think that
but you went from nothing to double, so we get.
Well, no, actually, I went from about 40 to an estimate now of 95,000.
Right, but you were running close to zero just because of your limited staff. I mean, we started building the staff back in, and we saw those receipts start coming in, right? Yep. I guess
But the estimate we put in was 44. I think 44,000. That was the estimate.
The year before's number.
We're now at 90.
Right.
95.
I guess my point is, don't when you say double, I don't want anyone to expect they're going to double.
No, I know.
I know. I just when we're throwing the words around, I'm like, oof.
Yeah, I do think it will increase slightly.
Yeah.
And there's there is another side to this that's just as important. We will then have 2 officers on. They will not be in a dangerous situation, and they will be able to better protect the town and the people and get there quickly and deal with the issues. Perfect example is we remember the Northbridge officer that was stabbed a few weeks ago. We tried to stop that guy. I had one officer on duty, and he tried to ram his cruiser. Now, what if he had got him stopped? I don't know what he had in the car, but obviously he was in a combative mood. What would have happened? And I do think we do owe a certain responsibility to make sure that these guys are safe. And beyond that, if you just think about it financially and just for the residents, 19 square miles, if you were in trouble and you need the police there, and they're on the other side of town, there's only one on, it's gonna take a while to get there.
Rich, can you and I run this through the spreadsheet?
Oh, yeah, no, we need to do that, and that's, I just didn't get it, he asked me to take a look at it, I just ran out of time, I couldn't do it.
I'm not looking for any decisions tonight. We've got plenty of time. I wanted
I'd like
to.
Can we talk about the clerk?
Let him work
I
on
wanna
it.
make sure it works.
Yeah, no, can we talk the clerk in terms of, I mean, there's gonna be some stuff that's clerical that absolutely has to stay and remain within the domain of public safety just due to privacy, et cetera, correct?
Corey stuff, yeah,
Right.
sensitivity.
But I would be curious, are there clerical duties that we're asking officers to do that don't necessarily need to stay there? I'm talking about invoices, things like that. I mean, is there this idea of pooling this resources? Because
Some bill paying and stuff, yeah,
Yeah.
some of that stuff, I mean, see, unfortunately, a big part of our stuff is either very sensitive stuff.
Yeah, I don't want that.
There's domain
Right.
knowledge,
Well, I'm sorry?
or they need a lot of domain knowledge, in other words, no.
Well, you know,
sensitive
a lot of it is records requests.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure it makes a lot of sense to have someone research and pull the records and make copies of them, redact them, just to send them to someone else that's just gonna send them to where they have to go.
No, I'm thinking, I mean,
Yeah.
even to reduce workload more so in terms of, KVS entries.
I am not opposed to coming up with a plan to share. I don't have any problem with that. I'm also
Is this
willing,
something we can outline then, sort of, what are the sort of things that,
Yeah,
things
I
that,
mean-
it's a no-go, these are things we might be able to look at sharing on?
yeah, I mean, I don't even mind if we reduce things a little bit. I've got that person plugged in at 32 hours. If we think that, to make it work, we've gotta go to 24, well, then we've gotta go to 24.
Well, I mean, I think Lonnie has a good point on, there's a
Yeah.
potentially a $60,000 bogey in a year's time, which I think we've got to
Well,
consider.
it's either a $60,000 increase or it's an
Unemployment.
unemployment exposure of 40, roughly 42, if you bring in both officers of,
Or we have a year's time to figure out how it gets funded, potentially, right?
Right, but we also have, look, I think it's a great idea. I think that, Rich's spreadsheet really tells the perfect story. And let's look at it, because if it can be done, I mean, if it's really that, we just don't want to lose sight of this, and then in a year or a year and a half or 2 years from now, we're sitting here going,
How'd that happen?
oh, wait a minute, now we're gonna, we don't want to lay somebody off. I just don't want to be in an argument or in a predicament that.
Let's first let Rich work it and see if he agrees with my numbers.
Make sure we've gotten
and
everything.
Throw it around in the FinCon.
Yeah, and let's also make sure that we've got, make sure that all of the, like we've been discussing, the little items that we forget sometimes.
Yeah.
That sneak up on us after, that we don't want to miss those. We want to know the actual true end cost of this. So that-
Like the insurance, right?
Yeah, insurance is one thing, all the
There's a
little
few
things.
things that have to be plugged in.
And again, I know you always do, and I know the FinCom always does as well. Let's figure on the high side.
Yeah.
So that it's always nice to be pleasantly surprised and.
Yeah.
And I'll work with them to make sure that there's any little nuances that they need to know about. I mean, you got exposure like for clothing allowance and things like that, but.
Yeah, I mean, if it's definitely doable, I think it's a great idea, but, we're also in that rebuild stage, so I don't want anybody to lose sight of, we're working with, we're also working with unions right now, and we're rebuilding, the other departments as well. If it does make sense if there's a reduction in overtime spending, it makes sense if there's a reduction in other areas that we can use to fund this. So.
Well, it always makes sense to not spend premium dollars on work
Absolutely.
that can be done at regular cost, whether it's in private industry or municipalities. Paying overtime for work to be done is a lose-lose
Yeah.
situation.
All right, well,
I just have a quick question. So, just one thing I'm concerned about here is just the dispatch savings, right? So you get somebody retiring or whatever, you said they're moving on of their own volition and everything, right? Anyway, it's natural acquisition, right, this
Yep.
person? Okay, so there's no issue with, obviously, unemployment stuff, but there's no chance that that person going away is gonna make you have to pay more overtime at dispatch, is it?
No, we're gonna fill some shifts with part-time, and if you remember when we talked about trying to have 2 dispatchers so we could use some for clerical work way back, and,
Won't have to do that if you have this clerk.
yeah, we lose that ability to do that here.
Okay. Okay.
I don't anticipate any problems in dispatch based on this.
Okay.
And just the last thing, the $1,820, that, I did that on the total salary of that person, not on the 38, so when you look at the
Can you do me a
calculation.
favor, though? Could we get just semi-conservative on the dispatch number, maybe, just in case something was to happen and we needed to have?
You answered my question, but we're done.
I mean,
Yeah.
is it 38,000 you have there? I mean, if we called it 35 or 30,
Yeah, I mean, we can.
just, again, I'd rather be,
I got you.
you know what I mean?
We'll
On the
let them
conservative
work.
Yeah, sure,
with it, and then we'll look at it. Fortunately, this is in front of you with lots of time to think about it.
So, Chief, how much are you projecting with saving overtime? Because you actually haven't added that to your,
I wouldn't save overtime over the 80, I wouldn't reduce the 80,000. I still need that for investigations, for court, for everything else.
so that stays.
The additional, I would say that I would assume that the additional overtime that's being requested is the savings.
That's the savings and the fact that I need to give people time off.
And,
So with this, you feel like 80,000 is gonna be enough? That's kind of what we're trying to understand.
Yeah, I think with this additional staffing, I don't foresee a time when I will ever be coming back for more overtime.
If your baseline's 80.
Yes. If you think back a few years ago, when I was at full staff, I had 160,000. There were several years I returned a substantial amount of overtime,
Yeah.
$20,000, $30,000 sometimes.
the other, shit, I lost my- excuse me,
That's an FCC violation.
hopefully they're not watching. Hopefully nobody heard me. Turn the microphones down.
Chief, last year, I think we spent an extra 45,000, so that'd be savings. We spent 45 above the 80 last year, and this year we're already at 20. And luckily, nothing else has happened, we're at 20. I think, you know, if you get to that stream that we were before, you won't see the 80 going to.
Right,
120.
we're able to deal with the unpredictable things that seem so.
Well, I
it's
think,
always
I think
happen.
last year why the number was so high, last summer, we had a couple of near disasters, I believe.
Well, we've had a couple this year, too.
Right,
I spent some serious
Well,
money
there
on
are
a couple
cases-
of blizzards.
Right, there is gonna be the cases that come up
Well,
unforeseen.
but that's what the 80,000's for. If I have to use the majority of that to just cover open shifts on the midnight day shift, I don't have any money for those other things.
So, I mean, this is the head count we talked about coming into this fiscal year for next. We said if we can get one more,
Yes.
you got the flexibility you need to cover.
Yes.
Yeah.
It gives me
Time
4,
off.
4, and
Right.
4.
Right.
I remember the pictures we were drawing on the calendar, 6 different ways from Sunday.
Ideally, it's 14, but the 13 makes it start to work.
Yeah, we won't be at 13 this year because one's gone. He's away, he's deployed. But when he returns, we'll be at the 14. We won't be at 15.
That's what I'm saying, is
Right.
We'll be at
One's
14 with you.
leaving.
With me,
All right.
One's leaving, we're gonna gain 2.
right. So we technically gain 1 for the year that the other one's gone.
So that was confusing us too, Chief. So let's pretend Cinco
Yep.
excuse me, the officer comes back, right? And we don't lay anybody else off, we just keep everybody.
Right.
Then we have how many officers plus you?
14 including me,
Including you, so we have 13 plus 1.
yes.
Okay. And at that point, you're saying that I can live with that staffing level, that's what you're saying?
That is where I need to be,
Yeah.
and there will not be any increases, next year, the year after.
And so what does
Well,
that
I-
do then to the overtime situation? Is that effectively increase it? I mean, is it?
No, he's saying
Raise
it's gonna be
the
80,000.
overtime additional.
The additional overtime, right now, I could easily be spending another $50,000 in overtime if I give these guys the days, which is probably why they're here. Like I said, they want to have their days off.
Not to mention, it would reduce the exposure we have to the accumulated vacation.
Absolutely.
Sure.
That's a big exposure.
There are.
This
At
number,
that point in time, we should talk about that, approximately 60,000 plus the benefits coming back.
Yeah.
online, seem to be some reasonable offsetting.
Yeah.
mitigating
We will not have a couple $100,000 of exposure in owed time, and we will not be back for 45,000 last year, 20,000 this year. We won't be back from our owed time. It will give you a more predictable police budget.
Which is,
That won't hit you with the unforeseen things.
which is the goal that we're trying to work
Well, I would
back to.
think so. I think we want to adequately protect the town, and we want to have, we really would like to have a stable budget that we're confident isn't going to get way out of whack.
Yeah, I think it's key to point something out, though. I mean, I totally appreciate what you're saying there. Naturally, just like in any other capacity business, you don't staff for the peak, right? You staff somewhere up along there, right? So what you're saying is, this gets you, it doesn't give you the peak, right?
No.
But it gives you something closer than you are now that stabilizes what we can expect budgetarily. So you'll still occasionally maybe have a big Sandy or big storm, a huge thing, and you end up with $20,000 worth of overtime. That might happen.
Well, I don't
Could
think,
happen.
it wouldn't be 20,000, but it might be 5 to 8,000, sure.
could happen.
But the thing is, if I've got properly staffed shifts,
Right.
I don't need to bring in as many people.
Right.
And if I have properly staffed shifts, I haven't spent my available
Right.
$80,000 overtime in other places, so I have that flexibility.
Yeah.
You know, one of the problems we're having right now is I've got an unusual, well, it's not really unusual, we've made the most arrests in the history of the town in the last year. What was it, 600? 500? 500 arrests. That's an awful lot for us. That generates an awful lot of court. And I have to send guys to a lot of court, and that costs me overtime.
Yeah.
So this gives me the ability to use the 80,000 for the things it's really supposed to be for.
Yeah.
Just, Jim Supreme, right now, currently staffed, you're 12,
Including
including
me.
you. Okay. So it's gonna go down to 11.
11 plus 1 now.
Due to deployment, you add 2 more, so it's 13,
This brings you to 13.
including
Plus
you. And then it potentially 14, including
14 when
you,
he
in a
returns.
year's time.
Yeah.
Lieutenant?
Pull up, the secretarial's position, I've been doing that for a year. And if you remember last year during May, Tom meeting, we discussed
Mhm.
me being off the road most of the time. So when you say 13 officers, you're really, it's 12 officers. I'm doing administrative work, more or less, than being on the road. And you're paying me a lieutenant salary to do the secretarial.
He is a fantastic secretary, though.
I
Yeah, he's got a little bit of an edge to him, but.
won't wear a dress.
He does do a great job, I have to say.
Yeah.
But you're paying me as lieutenant's pay.
Right, right. Understood.
And there's a lot of that going on in the fire department. You know, when I had a clerk, she also dealt with a great deal of paperwork from the fire department. Now they're doing it. So I think that this is a good plan, and I think it will stabilize public safety. It'll take us off of the front burner, and we can fade into the shadows so that you can address some of the other issues. So, I'd ask you to consider it, let them look through it, and then, we circle back around in a month or so.
And you can take a look at the clerk duties to see if there's
Yeah.
something we can kind of free up some time that way.
Yeah, I'm all for trying to do something there.
Anything else you want to,
Oh, geez.
Oh,
Joe Walker from the police union. I would just like to mention that working alone is not an anomaly. This isn't something that just happens randomly.
Hey, guys.
We're seeing it a lot.
Rich.
To date, we have people that are planning vacations in April. There are 5 shifts in April already that are going to be staffed alone. 4 of them are your 4 to 12 shift. One's the midnight shift. It's not always the midnight shift. To date, we have 3 shifts that have been staffed with only 1 officer. The other night, one of those officers had to arrest 2 people, 1 male, 1 female. You can't put them in the same car. It's a civil rights violation. So the officer working until 2 o'clock stayed the better part of an hour. He didn't put in for the overtime because he knows there's no money. He knows if he puts it in, there's going to be some pushback. It's a problem, and it needs to be fixed now. We're hemorrhaging. When you look at, personally speaking, and not for the union, I see 4 options. One is you shut down the midnight shift, which is creating another problem, and I don't think it's a good option. fund the overtime, give us more people, or do nothing. For 63 years, you gambled, and we haven't lost a police officer for 63 years. Maybe we can make it another few years.
Well, doing nothing is not an option. We're trying to do something right now by coming up and formulating a plan. Again, I appreciate it, the patience that the police department has shown. And we've been struggling. I don't want to get on a soapbox, but we've been struggling for the last 4 or 5 years now. And we're starting to climb out of the economic depression slowly. So, and we're not ignoring it. So like I said, ignoring it's not an option. And your comments and points are well taken, believe me.
One
Lieutenant?
thing I want to recommend is that don't prolong, Snickle's leaving June 1st. So he's got vacation time going, so he's going to be leaving to spend time with his, take his vacation time, his holidays, whatever time before, he spend with his wife. He just got married this year, so he wants to spend a little time. If we prolong it, wait, we're going to find ourselves May, June 1st.
We won't prolong it. We're going to discuss it right away.
Yeah.
I assure you.
And we do have a very good department. They've been very patient.
Just let you know, I have 58 vacation days on the books.
So just-
Not counting holidays, and that's just me. I appreciate the time, but I eventually do want to.
I've probably got about a $250
I don't blame
million
you.
exposure in vacation and holiday time in the department.
Mike?
Mr. Chairman, if I hear the conversation correctly, so there is currently going to be shifts up until July 1 that will be filled by one officer? Is that correct?
It's been happening for the last couple of years,
Yes.
all the time.
So I guess my question would be, is there any way to resolve that immediately based on the public, the rest of the public safety officers that are out there prior to July 1?
We recognize that this is not something, no. We recognize that this is not something that can be fixed overnight. There is no money. So, but I think that these guys look at it, if we see light at the end of the tunnel, we'll be okay. They're willing to put up with it. Sure, I'm gonna have to deny some time off to make sure that they aren't alone. I've got over $20,000 of overtime coming in next week. That will help. Is it gonna be perfect between now and July? No, it's not, but we recognize that the town is not in a financial position to fix this overnight.
I mean, this is more in line with the timing we talked about
Yes.
last year. So, I mean, I think it's a good time to bring it up. I mean, we kind of expected this, I think.
And we've just happened to have an opportunity where someone's leaving for a year that provides us with some money.
Okay, any further discussion on?
I'd just like to make one more comment if I could. I would just want to make sure it's crystal clear that certainly the FinCom totally understands the issues and the problems, right? I mean, there's no question. I think we're all in violent agreement with that. I mean, we just perseverate on it if we could, there's no question. I think at the end of the day, the thing that sometimes sets up an issue is the fact that I think we start from the perspective of, okay, get it, yeah, we should have, we really want that, but you're not entitled to it unless you can afford it. I tell my kids this all the time. You don't have the money for it, I don't care what you think you're entitled to. If you don't have the money for it, you can't get it, right? So it's more a matter of, finding, just like the chief did. I think he's done a great job, and this is a great start to figure out how to work this in, and that's the kind of stuff we've got to do, just like you're saying. We've got to inch back there and get there as fast as we can, but just not put ourselves in another predicament.
Right. I think what we need to do at this point is, I think everyone understands what we need to do, and I think everyone's in agreement to try to get there. I think let them go through those numbers, and hopefully they don't come up with a different number. Because it works, based on what I've explained to you, assuming that I have it correct. But that's why it's important to have other eyes look at it, to see if you've made a mistake. Because Dave and I worked on it, and I think what is in front of you is probably version 5. So we found mistakes we made.
I mean, the only
Maybe
the bogey I see is the insurance right now, plus we got to make a decision on, upon returning, what does that 60 look like? And that's more decisions, if all the other numbers work out,
I think
right?
that we know what the 60 looks like. I think we need to understand unemployment exposure.
Or choose to staff up.
Well, yeah, right. I mean, that's the other approach, right?
The other approach is
Hope that going into
60,000.
15.
Whatever his cost is today is the ramp up.
Right.
Right, and hoping going into 15, we don't have.
Just so that everybody knows, I personally am leaning towards going to the 14.
If you can get there
if we can
safely.
get there. And that's what we're gonna try to work towards.
I think we're all on the same page, but we don't want to make a mistake.
I would hope at least the one additional one would be a no-brainer, because just in June, you're gonna expose
Yeah.
yourself to 9,000.
Oh, the replacement, you mean?
Yeah, that should be
that's
a
easy.
no-brainer.
Yeah, that's.
That's a good point. June alone would be an additional $9,000 of exposure.
If you could replace him in
So you-
June, then you're gonna save that money.
Cite the cost
20%
avoid,
of his, 25% of his pay already for the
I
next
mean,
year.
unless it requires a vote of some sort, I would at least be interviewing.
Well, we still have a list. We still have a list, but, you know, I mean, I'd like to sit tight right now, at least for a week or two, and see what gets chewed up, but we're capable of moving on one fairly quickly.
So you have people lined up and they.
Yeah, well, when we did our last hiring, we have people on the list. We do well. We usually have people apply from most of the area towns around us. So we've got some people in the queue.
Mike?
I do want to try to avoid Quinn certified people, though.
Mr. Chairman, when the FinCom says they're not entitled, is the FinCom speaking to the clerk or the police officer staffing? Because as a resident, I would say they are entitled to not work one shift by themselves. And I would hope.
I think that was taken completely out of context.
Absolutely. Yeah, let me repeat what I said. So what I'm basically saying is that as a basic principle, whether it's home finances or whether it's the town finances, if you don't have the money for it, you can't afford it, you're not entitled to it because you don't have the money. You gotta have the money, you gotta come up with it somehow. That's what defines whether you.
I think the word entitled is probably.
Might be the wrong word, but.
Might be a better word to use.
Might be a better word, but the bottom line is if you can't afford it, you can't afford it. That's all I'm saying.
I think probably the perfect word is responsible. I mean, if we can't afford it, then it may not be responsible.
Mr. Chairman, I asked because the FinCom has been great to debate me on this in the past at their meetings. I asked because, in my opinion, as a resident here, we do have the money, we decide where we put the money. So if we have one officer working on the street by himself, someone on the town side, Board of Selectmen FinCom has to make a decision. That's important enough to us to move money around to make sure these guys are not in the street by themselves. That is something the FinCom can do, that is something the Board of Selectmen can do. And I hope, moving forward, we stop seeing this, especially after July 1, that we don't see somebody working by himself again. Based, in fact, in part of the story the chief just told. We got a guy who stabbed somebody in Northbridge and tries to kill a police officer, and our guy tried to stop him by himself.
And I would mostly agree with Mr. Watson on that point.
Well, there's no debate there.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you for everyone for listening. I appreciate to hear what you come up with. Rich, I'm sure I'll get something from you probably about 1 o'clock in the morning.
Not today.
Okay, I believe we're gonna, open the warrant for
Yes, May 3rd.
May 3rd.
Oh, I have that here somewhere. I move to open the May 3rd, 2013 annual town meeting warrant.
second?
The motion's been made and seconded to open the May 3rd.
2013.
2013 annual town meeting warrant. Any further discussion on that? Some discussion will be, the closing date of the warrant will be, I believe, March 26th,
2013.
2013. The warrant being sent to the printer would be March 28th, 2013. The deadline for publishing in the town crier, which is a requirement to publish it in a local paper, is April 4th, 2013. And the warrant has to be posted by 2 weeks prior to the town meeting, which that date is April 19th, 2013. The selectmen, the Board of Selectmen need to sign it April 8th, 2013. So,
Motion to adjourn.
No, we still have one more issue.
You do what?
We still have to talk about the financial director.
I want to defer that.
Oh, really?
Tonight?
How deep's that discussion?
I'll-
Can't wait till Monday?
It's at least 60 seconds. Only one person applied, and she's sitting here.
But we haven't seen the job description. We were talking about revising a job description?
Yep.
Okay.
And my recommendation is that you only have one person applied, so you could move forward with her, subject to reaching a mutually agreed upon job description.
Well,
I have to assume she's gonna want some input.
Do we need to vote on this opening, or is this done? Do we close that up before we move on
I'm
to this?
sorry?
I'm just wondering, are we done with the opening of the warrant?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, unless you have further items on your list.
No, I
That-
just.
Nope, that was the
I
last
just,
one. Did you guys do the,
Reviewed all the dates pertinent to
it is.
the warrant.
Town coordinator, oh, wait a minute, discuss town coordinator position?
you had discussed town coordinator, we already talked about we gotta get the money for that, and the financial director
But I think that's
position.
a follow-up on the idea of, if we can get somebody in here to help us out.
Oh.
And does that or does that not impact this CFO
Well, there's
type
a,
of position?
again, a couple of, as we know, a couple of suggestions have been made that, again, there's no dispute that, yes, we need a town coordinator, town manager, we need someone in a position, call it what you may. And we're all in agreement that we have to find a funding mechanism for it, because, like you're saying, we can't give someone a job if there's no money to pay them.
Well,
So, just to be thinking about it, what are the options? What are the options for funding the town coordinator position?
well, you really don't, I don't believe you have, according to, I think FinCom will agree, you don't have any options. There's nothing that you can do with that position until you find out if the people are gonna support an override.
Well, I guess what I was talking was what we talked about in our last meeting. Possibly having somebody, possibly having somebody help out in the office, given your departure.
I'd like to
And,
leave May, I'd
So,
like to
and-
leave May 1st.
Right.
Right, in lieu of,
But honestly,
We're
the
not-
most
we haven't
important thing is
decided.
that person right there.
right, I agree. But we haven't really discussed if we want to try to put an override on and ask the people. Of course, it's contingent upon the people voting for an override at town meeting and at the ballot.
Okay. It's 10:15 at night. This is a huge discussion and needs to wait till the next meeting.
25th?
I agree.
Or, yeah, whatever our next meeting is.
That's why I brought it up, so that you can be thinking about it too.
The
do you want?
CFO thing has some implications, though.
What do you want to do with the financial
I mean,
director?
In that's, depending on who's stepping in for that,
Yep.
there's potential impact to what we just talked about at 6 o'clock tonight.
I understand that. I think that needs to be discussed before we move on with that, with the person that applied for that. And I think that, you know, I think that there's, do we need to rewrite the job description on it?
Well, what you should do is, we have a draft, which is what we posted it on. We posted for 10 days as instructed by the board. My recommendation is, you only have one person, she's here, interview her. If you like her, then you make the appointment subject to reaching a mutual agreed upon job description. If you can't reach a job description, and my sense is that she's gonna wanna have input on it, if you can't reach a job description, then you don't make that appointment. But no one else applied.
Right, but there's another item that needs to be discussed in there that has other union implications that I think that needs to be discussed.
Complications.
That may pose a complication, I don't know yet, which needs to be discussed, so, you know, short of, you know, recessing for the time to go discuss it, but
Okay, well,
I think that we need to discuss that,
Okay, so I'll,
based upon what we, yeah.
okay, so that's gonna be a topic for our next meeting.
And just make it the first topic so we can discuss it and close on the items. But I think to just start discussing them at 10:15 is.
So we're posted for the 18th for the school budget, I think, correct? And then the 19th is the town meeting. The 25th would be the first meeting that we have for substantive discussion. So it's 2 weeks out.
Right, we have a meeting the 13th, but
That's just executive session,
that's
right?
executive session of contract negotiations.
That's Wednesday.
Day after tomorrow.
I do need a very brief executive session.
Okay.
Okay.
For which one?
contract negotiations.
Which-
Just some strategy on contract negotiations.
Hold on 1 minute. Mike?
Chairman, can you just explain to us again why this discussion is not happening tonight regarding the financial director?
It's kind of late.
Or no, I understand not, I can hear Mr. Tenio say there was some concern about union and I know there's certain things you can't talk about here at this meeting unless it's
Right,
executive
those
session.
those are one of the things.
So, but it's not off the table for the board?
No.
You're
No,
still
no,
considering it and-
no, we're not trying to sweep it under, we're not gonna let it fall through the cracks.
Based upon, let me see if I can say this. Based upon an earlier executive session discussion, there just needs to be a discussion with the union or the union.
I think you're referring to if that position would be in or out, right?
This is just dotting i's and crossing t's
Yeah, I
based
wanna
on
make
previous
sure that-
And
discussions.
that wouldn't be an issue until July anyways, because it's a non-payment position, but I understand what you're talking about.
Right, so I just wanted to make
Yep.
sure we discuss that and don't
Yep.
put anybody in any
We
predicament.
do have an executive session, and I'll make it, believe me, I'll make it real quick, but we do need to talk real briefly about fire department and,
Okay, I move to go in.
dispatches.
Move to go into executive session on Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21, Choice Number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, fire department, and police dispatch.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded to go into executive session to discuss contract negotiations with
Police.
police.
No, I'm
and-
sorry.
Fire.
Police dispatch and fire.
Police, dispatch, and fire.
Roll call vote needed. We'll reconvene only to adjourn.
Second. Again.
I don't mind, if you don't mind, with the FinCom guys staying.
That's
I
fine,
I think it might be useful,
Okay.
or at least,
if you guys could stay.
Roll call vote. All in favor?
Tenio, aye.
Got it, aye.
Mendel, aye. Unanimous. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.